Well, hello. I'm David Bose. Hope you're all having a wonderful day. It's a beautiful day in Texas. Well, I woke up this morning and the sun was shining and thought it would be a pretty good day to do a video. So, as I sat here wondering what I was going to do today, some thoughts came to mind. And really, as I began to think about it, I thought, wow, this is really important stuff that needs to be talked about, because I think it really is something very few people ever talk about. And it sort of gets at the crux of who we are, where we are, what we're doing here. There's a certain contradiction going on, just about with everything. We've discussed that with various subjects, whether it's a sort of a contradiction about religion and God, or society, or law and order, or whatever. Like, on one hand, we need law and order, right, or else we can't survive. And on the other hand, a lot of people don't like law and order, right? Sometimes anarchy seems a little bit better, and it's confusing as to what is really the answer here? What would be the best system of government? What is the real truth about this particular world? Let's get right down to the brass knuckle here. Forget the governments of the world for a minute. That's a question that we have. What would be the best government? What kind of government is out there in space in an advanced, highly spiritually advanced society? What kind of government would they have? Would they have any government? And what is this Earth? Because if you look around at the Earth, there's lots of contradictions. Let me explain. On one hand, you could say, well, I'm a survivalist. I believe in going out in nature and living off the land. But there are lots of people, I know growing up, it used to surprise me, because I thought, in my mind, in my inner, I don't know that I thought about it to such an extent that I knew, but in my heart I believed, growing up, that all of this flashy stuff, these fancy luxurious homes that people have and these fancy cars, and I thought it was just unnecessary, and I didn't like it. I didn't feel comfortable in a big fancy Cadillac. I always felt more comfortable just out in nature walking. And I thought, all the stress of this world, the governments, I used to look at it real simple, like, well, cars are nice, convenient, and people might say, oh, they're beautiful and I love them and there's no harm in it, it's all right. But if you stop to think about all that goes into making a society where we drive cars, we've got to suck oil out of the ground, which is ruining the environment. Because we have cars that go very fast and very far, we get away from our families. Families are broken up. People are living alone all over the world. They're stressed out. We got to go to get a really good job to pay for these cars. And we're just running around just doing unnecessary things to pay for things that we don't actually need. You don't actually need a car. If you lived in the wild, you'd ride a horse. You say, yeah, but what about food? You can't get enough food just growing off the ground. Well, we can farm. Or, I've often wondered, does nature provide enough food just by itself? Is it really even necessary that human beings even work? I personally think that ultimately, at least if the world went back to the way it should be, that I don't believe we should even have to plant. I think that the trees simply just produce enough food for us. I know here in Texas that the mesquite have all these beans hanging off of them. And they give 2 harvests every year. And I know that many of the cactus have fruit hanging off of them and nobody ever eats it. And I know that there's berries and pecans growing, and through Arkansas there's all kinds of nuts and walnuts growing throughout the whole, acorns can be eaten and used, and you say, well, they're kind of bitter. Well, so is beans unless you put salt in them, But there's so much that we just don't know. Is it possible to live out there in nature? Think about this. What if you have diabetes? You couldn't survive in nature. You'd have to come into town and get some insulin. Unless you can come up with a miracle and be healed completely, and perhaps living right in nature, you would be. So you have this contradiction. You need the doctors. You need this fancy house, because this fancy house keeps the mosquitoes away from you. You can't just lay out here. Have you ever tried to lay out in the middle of a climate where there's mosquitoes everywhere and you can't lay? You've got to have a home. You got to get inside because the mosquitoes will eat you up. There's snakes, rattlesnakes. There's you walking through the forest, break your leg, you're going to die out there. Women died in childbirth until doctors came along, and now it's better, right? Now they don't die in childbirth as much. Well, here's the thing. Now they're dying of other reasons. The government is doing to them, just the stress. So what's the answer? This contradiction. Well, here's part of the answer. It is possible to go out into the nature and learn knowledge of the kind that can be passed on to your children. That is wisdom, and that is how to eat. Let's say you lived in the jungle and you were hungry, and there's a little brown round thing up in the tree, and you're like, well, what is that? And you're hungry, right? But you don't know what it is, or even if you found one, you wouldn't have to open it. Coconuts are hard. But through your own efforts, you find a way to extract the meat, the flesh, and the oil and the milk from that coconut, and you survive and you live and you learn to do this through trial and error, and you teach your children. So this is a wisdom that you can have to help you survive. Today we look out there and we think, oh, that's foreboding. People dying of malaria and mosquito bites and tick bites and broken legs and childbirth, and we can't survive out there. It's too hot, it's too sweaty, you'll get eaten up. But here's the thing, it is possible. If we didn't have society like this, people would get together, families, and they would be together as a family, and they would do it together. And they would live off of the wisdom that they had learned from their ancestors. And they would know how to take that coconut and open it. And they would know how to take the trees that fall and make little abodes, little places to sleep to get out of the rain when it's cold. Or they would know how to build little cabins, teepees or lean-tos or little cave dwellings. You say, well, that would be crazy. I wouldn't want to live like that. Well, it's a simple life, and you could find all the food that you needed, but you'd have to learn this over time to know what you could eat, what would be healthy. But in the end, there's not going to be any doctors. So if you've got diabetes, you're going to die out there. Well, first of all, most of this diabetes that we have today is probably caused from our society, from eating a bunch of high fructose corn syrup when we were little, or not getting the proper bacteria in our diet to create an immune system. So for one, most people wouldn't have diabetes if we all lived in nature. We wouldn't have diabetes, and we wouldn't have cancer because we'd be eating food that would be grown from the ground. We wouldn't eat meat because I don't think it would be natural to go out there and just start ripping animals apart and eating them, and blood running, all it stinks, and oh well, we've got to cook it and put spices on it and everything. We wouldn't do that naturally. And I suppose there could be a society that would have done that, but I don't think it would be necessarily optimum way of life. I think the farming would be better, or just the gathering. But the point is that there are other ways to do things, and it's hard to imagine because you always come up with these contradictions as to what is the real way to live. I mean, if you look at the human mind, we're capable of inventing things. So why not keep inventing things till we get to this age where we've got these doctors and this telephone and all these cars and everything, and this is great, right? And we just keep advancing. Well, that's what the evidently Nibiru did. These advanced beings on Nibiru, and they came to Earth, and they've got the ships and everything. Well, how did it work out for them? Well, now we've got 2 planets in this advanced state with cars and ships and so forth. And are we happy? Are we living longer? No. Would we live longer before? Maybe not. But here's the thing. Maybe nature is fine just the way it is. Maybe we wouldn't have any stress, and we could lay around and eat coconuts, make love to our wives, live in our teepees, build our fires, whittle sticks, do things that we enjoy doing, play on a flute, dance, drink some coconut wine with our friends, learn the secrets of nature, find the cannabis stash, if we're in pain, we've got peyote or opium or whatever that grows naturally in the wild that's provided for us. And yes, people would die. And perhaps the individuals that were born that were a little weaker than the others would get to an area that maybe because they were weaker, maybe mosquito bites would give them an allergic reaction, and maybe they would end up getting malaria or something from or some sort of fever or some kind of thing from the animals or the ticks in nature, and they would end up coming down with a fever and dying, and you say, see, there you go. That's why we can't live like this. Well, people still die. But that is the way that nature provides to wean out the gene pool so that the strong survive and we advance and progress. If we had done that for thousands of years today, the humans that would be alive today would probably be able to survive the situation around us. We would evolve into such a way that mosquitoes probably wouldn't bother us as much, or we would learn ways to keep the mosquitoes away from us. But one way or the other, living in nature is going to be the best way. And here's what I believe. I believe that ultimately there's the kingdom of men and there's the kingdom of our Father in heaven. The kingdom of spirit, the natural world. And I don't think there's anything wrong with this world. I think it's just that we're not living in this world right. We're being deceived. And the governments that we have comes from living wrong. And I think that in the galaxy, there are advanced civilizations, probably more towards the inner part of the galaxy. I believe we spiral around, going towards the center, and we advance towards the light. So I think in the outer part of the galaxy where we are, there are some civilizations on different planets like ours that perhaps are going through stages of learning. Perhaps before they reach this stage, there are civilizations that don't know a lot of stuff. They're more like not quite as advanced, but yet living in the wild and so forth. And then at some sort of stage of evolution, we start learning how to invent things, and we call it advanced, like the people on Nibiru and this planet, and probably a lot of other planets in this area. But I think that the higher angels, they look down and they see us, and they have a certain prime directive where they don't get involved in the evolution of our societies and our growth. And they know that eventually the course that we're on is going to lead to disaster. There's going to be a big, the oil's going to run out and the earth's going to dry up, and it doesn't bother them because they know that it's natural for a tree to grow and then die. Perhaps it's natural for flowers to grow and die. Perhaps it's natural for worlds to come and just die, and human beings to come and live on this earth and to live here like an observer and watch things and not necessarily be worried about the fact that we may only live 50, 60, 70 years and then die. Perhaps this is just a place to observe, for our spirit to live for a while, a cloak to put on and then to discard and take another one. Perhaps it's not such a terrible thing to live and die. Perhaps what's more important is to live and learn to love and to learn real wisdom, like how to get that coconut open and share it with your neighbor, how to love, how to share that coconut with your best friend, and all the memories that's going to go along with it, and having those memories with each other and loving one another, and those experiences is what we're really here for, not to advance in some technological, euphoria, because we're not going to be able to live forever by advancement, because you make a car, you suck the oil out of the earth, you pollute the earth, you make people have to work overtime, night and day to pay for the car, stress that's involved. More people are dying because of these cars and electricity and all these advancements than if we were just to live out in society and take the risk that some of us would, some of the weaker genetics would die off, and we would get stronger and evolve physically stronger and spiritually stronger, because we learn to love and share and take care of one another rather than just say, oh, I'll let welfare take care of them, right? We'd take care of our own families. So I think there's more to learn living in nature. And I think that higher advanced beings are spiritually advanced and not physically. And I think we're at that stage on this planet where we're physically advanced, but we're becoming less advanced spiritually. And we're unable to communicate with each other telepathically now. We're unable to experience true euphoria and joy. We're unable to be happy at times because of the world that we live in. And I think that we're at a stage not about where a lot of people have said in the past where, oh, we're almost to that point where Christ is coming back and there's going to be utopia and the world's going to be great, like Jehovah's Witnesses teach, and it's going to be a big paradise. I don't think so. I think that that life goes on forever. We don't have an end or a beginning. And the stage that we're in right now is just another stage in the progress of life, and we're going to learn from it. We're going to come and we're going to go, but we're living in an age, we're about to go into the Aquarian age, which is really an age ruled over by Satan and technology and darkness. And those of us who know this and understand it will pause and observe it and watch it go by. We're learning something. We're getting these physical bodies and these physical energies, and we're experiencing what it's like to live in this kind of a world. But in reality, I hope that we get the idea that we got to advance beyond this. We got to start, we're being tested and tempted with all these dark forces, but many of us are realizing this isn't the right way. And so a lot of us are going to learn something from this, but yeah, the utopia isn't going to come before, the utopia is going to come when we just begin to relax and accept things and let them flow. And realize that our Father in Heaven's already created the perfect blueprint. We don't have to create our own world. We just have to let the world be. Just observe and enjoy it. Let it all flow. And you're standing there in nature and you're looking around, you're hungry, and you realize, wow, there's a coconut. Oh, look at that. There's a fruit growing on that tree. Wonder what that would taste like. It's been provided for you. Everything's been provided. I don't believe that somehow or another we humans are supposed to do things with the flesh in order to make ourselves happier, or there's something that we've got to do. I think what we've got to learn is that there's very little we have to do other than to learn love, and other than to share and enjoy this world. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and go, friends. I hope that helped. I think that's what I have come to understand is the truth, that this world we live in and that we're living in is just not quite what it should be. And if we're going to progress, we're going to have to get more spiritual and not more physically advanced. So this is David Vos. So I'm going to go ahead and go. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Have a good one.